Hello everyone, welcome to the Theories of International Relations course. We will continue with Chapter 6, International Regime Theories. In this chapter, we will firstly talk about the concept of regime and then the content and the limits of international regimes and cooperation, and lastly, the critiques of international regimes. Let's start with the concept of regime. International regimes can be defined as explicit or implicit norms, rules, principles, and decision-making processes related to certain issue areas. Regime is thought as a result of consent of states and the limited surrender for independent decision-making authority. Domestic structures are the best examples for them, whereas states are institutions created by individuals surrendering certain powers for protecting themselves and attaining security. In international regimes, states have duties and obligations for those violating their responsibilities. According to a broader definition, regime is understood as patterns of behaviors in international relations, whereas in narrow meaning, it can be defined as conditioning the behaviors of states consciously to realize collective goals and can be seen as a specific version of international institutions. On the other hand, main purpose of adopting the broader definition is to indicate the regulations related to international topics, civil societies, social movements, and global governance. The concept of international regime is explaining the legitimate and accepted rule of games and behaviors for sovereign states in international arena. The purpose of regimes is to form a frame for facilitating the solution of problems through treaties. Regimes do not only make cooperation easier in the short run, but also in the long run provide an environment of cooperation for promoting relations. Let's see what the content and the limits of international regimes are. International regime, in the first sense, is understood to regulate the areas out of sovereign rights of states. But at present, states might have to establish regimes in their own domain of power. One of the certain examples of these situations is to establish regimes in the field of human rights and environment. However, international regimes may be formed in every field of subjects of international relations, starting from security issues to environmental issues, and might comprise all international regulations and common standards. For example, regime of straits, regime of rivers and waterways, international trade regime, international payment regime, and international environmental regime exist and are often used to explain the rules governing those areas. Regime, rather, is an incentive for patterns of behaviors and common standards accepted by all states with full consent and without questioning. States are eager to establish international regimes in the fields out of their authority. Therefore, most international regimes so far exist in all fields except state sovereignty, such as common use of open seas and use of outer spaces. In some fields, states would be eager to create regimes to prevent the anarchy and uncertainty and establish an order and maintain security. Now we can talk about international regimes and cooperation. Increasing the interaction and mutual interdependence among states leads them to find collective solutions for common problems. These developments necessitate surrendering their sovereignty rights to a certain extent and to find unilateral solutions for problems. But these regulations are realized by states and don't eliminate their sovereignty. All international institutions cannot assume to be international regimes. In general, international regimes are a subsection of international institutions. In that sense, international institutions are codified by states and would represent the limits of their authority and power. In other words, international regime theories would be needed to reduce uncertainties in certain fields that states cannot otherwise control by unilateral initiatives. One of the basic presumptions of regime theories is that regulations in all fields among states would provide peace and security. But in this sense, there are some concerns and critiques that states would be reluctant to restrict their sovereignty, or the regulations would rather reflect the interests of great powers or not. Another important reason that leads to the formation of regimes is the multiplicity of interests of states. Therefore, if states don't have common interests or states prefer the unilateral initiatives, then international regime would be impossible. In contrast to the presumptions that regimes would limit or reduce the autonomy of states, security regime, through eliminating the uncertainties and security dilemma, would increase states' room to maneuver in certain areas such as security issues. Similarly, in the field of transportation and communication, regimes would provide the opportunity to use their autonomy and power without any considerations. Our final topic is the critiques of international regimes. Theory of international regimes has been criticized in different aspects. Some of these critiques are acceptance of the states as basic actors and ignorance of the non-state actors. The advocates of regime theories reply that even these actors might be influential in political processes. However, in the final stage, the states do make the decision as a dominant actor in international relations. These are determined through power relations. Some critics of the theory claim that regime theory can only be applied to liberal states. But the defenders of this theory respond that all states would need a regime in international relations. As we said before, increasing economic welfare and security concerns would enforce the states to sacrifice some of their powers emanating from sovereignty. In addition, contrary to regime theories, functional theories ignore the power relations among the states, and numerous initiatives for cooperation would reflect the interests of powerful states instead of weak and small states. Moreover, some theorists argue that regime theories are constructed on the theory of hegemony that refer to asymmetric relations among states, and therefore derived from the American hegemony that began after Second World War. Well, this is the end of our program for Chapter 6 of the Theories of International Relations course. Don't forget that we will continue our program with Chapter 7. Goodbye.